Hi everyone, we are so excited to share this video with you. Many parents of young children with DLD or suspected language disorder are very fearful about the future. And as parents ourselves, we wanted to speak to that place of anxiety.
Yeah, so we gathered a list of questions from you guys, our community, who are still in the early days of parenting a child struggling with communication. And we wanted to thank you so much, all of you who sent in your questions, because they really helped guide our conversation.
So today we are talking with Nicole, a mom of 4 kids, 3 of whom have DLD. She very recently actually found out that she herself also has DLD. She is a wealth of knowledge and a huge inspiration.
We hope that by listening to her story, you will be encouraged and filled with hope for your child's future.
Enjoy!
So where are you on your journey? You said you got tested because of your kids. Was that recently or?
Yeah, just a couple months ago in March. I received the results in March. I went through testing in January, early February. I think I had to go twice. It was interesting, exhausting, mentally exhausting. And I'm like, I'll never forget feeling so, I'm going to say helpless, because I'm like, you're not letting me use any of the things that I use to get through life, none of the tools. And I'm like, you're asking me to do this, something I really can't do without those other tools. So, but yeah, I made it through.
That's
And I knew before he even gave me the results that was what it was going to be. So,
so brave of you. Yeah. And I bet, do you feel like it helped you understand your kids a little bit more?
yeah, the biggest thing, it relieved a lot of worry for me. That's the biggest thing. It relieved a lot of worry. I now could go, okay, my kids will be okay, and they can get through. We'll walk through this journey. We'll do whatever we have to do, and we'll get them whatever they need. So
that's beautiful. And you found so many tools that you were alluding to before that have helped you. Do you feel like your kids would have, I guess, different tools would be helpful for different kids? But tell us a little bit about your kids. How many do you have?
I have 4 children.
Okay, me too.
27, 3 boys, then my youngest was a girl. So the boys, it was like, oh, it's a boy thing. I initially noticed a struggle with reading.
Yes.
And then it just got harder once they got to about 6th grade, that they were just really having a really hard time keeping up with everything. And we were spending a lot of time going over things at home, repeating things, redoing everything. I'm like, because I was one of those moms, you can't just let them continue to fail. You have to explain it to them, because I was like, I'm not going to let that happen, because I know what happens after that. But yeah, so they've always been pretty hard workers. And I feel like there's more today than what there was when I grew up. I have no shame in my age. I'm 47 years old. So I found out at 46, 10 months, that I have developmental language disorder. But yeah, so there's a lot more available today than what I had. Just even the tools of the internet, reading a book digitally, you can just automatically put your finger on a word and it shows the meaning right there. You have that automatic availability to meaning that we didn't have before. Before, I had to go to a dictionary, let alone I had to figure out how to spell a word correctly to find it in the dictionary. And then the meaning in the dictionary is not the greatest meanings when you get to a standard dictionary. There are other dictionaries that are better, that I learned via reading how to be able to support vocabulary for my children better. Bringing Words to Life by Dr. Beck, I believe is her name, Isabel Beck, I think, was a great book for me, that I learned a lot of different things and some different strategies that I started including just in my daily life. For me, like, come across a word, I don't know the word, I look it up in a couple different dictionaries that she recommends in her book. And then I try to relate it to something in my life and use it through an aspect that I can relate to in my life to create to latch onto that meaning. So those are just little tools that I've used not only for myself, but my children. And I'm like, hey, bookmark this in your Google Chrome because I have a standard dictionary I always go to, and it's not the Webster dictionary, or I'm trying to think, there's probably others, but it's a Collins dictionary online, and it's such a great dictionary, and it gives different usage of the sentences and different forms, examples. It's a great tool for anybody to have for just word meaning. I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm going to learn as I just am beginning to go through language therapy. I had my first session last week, and I do my second one this week.
Wow,
So you're never too old. Never too old.
So great. So take us through just with your 4 children, which is awesome. Janine also has 4 children. And take us through, do all of your children show symptoms of DLD?
All of my children, well, 3 of them do. My oldest does not. I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 12-year-old. The 19 and the 12 are formally diagnosed with DLD. The other one they said he probably has a mixed receptive expressive language disorder, the 17-year-old, but he no longer, he doesn't meet the cut score for that anymore. He did at one time, but I think he was diagnosed with a receptive language disorder a while back through the schools.
Right.
But so I would say yes, they probably do. Just, we know that over time, sometimes that can change from developmental language disorder to a reading comprehension disorder. And I would say it's not as severe. You've had enough tools in your toolbox that it doesn't meet that qualification standard anymore.
Yeah.
So all 3 of them probably do. I probably have other family members, but I'll let them find that out on their own and encourage them to.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And we had just the privilege of having members in our community share some questions that they were, burning questions that they were kind of excited to hear you answer, and absolutely no pressure to kind of get through all of them. We'll get through what we get through. And thank you so much. So I think the one that caught my eye as well was just understanding your your high school experience. How was that for you? How was that for you?
Well, I would say high school was pretty good for me.
Okay.
I went through some, I think in 6th grade, we moved. And then when I started 9th grade, we moved again. So I was always an extremely, extremely quiet kid. Always. I didn't really say a whole lot. And moving twice in my middle school years, really, I started to come out of my shell. I had to. I didn't have an option. I didn't like having to move, but I think it was probably a good thing for me. So that was probably an encouragement. I also had siblings that, were very active. And so to keep up with that, I have to keep up my own skills. And then my mom is one of 16, so I had aunts and uncles that were my age. And when I went to middle school, I hung out with a lot of them at the same time. So I had a lot of peers that were really close knit. So I could make errors that nobody else would notice and not have to worry about peers making fun of you or anything like that. I didn't have much of that, but I always had a core group of 3 or 4 really close friends, and that was just kind of, I think somebody asked about playing sports. I didn't do a whole lot of sports. I did like to run. I did sports in junior high, and gymnastics. But I didn't really do any in high school. I more participated in the fine arts, show choir, band, choir. Not really a drama person. I didn't like to memorize stuff. That was a lot of hard work for me.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I would say I was pretty I mean, I was quieter than a lot of my friends, but I had some really close friends that I hung out with on a regular basis.
Nice. And what about academics? Did teachers change things for you? Did they use more strategies or modify assignments, or not at all?
I never had any of that. My mom just, after talking to her more about this, she's like, well, you just worked harder than all the other siblings did. I think I remember K through 6, my grades were anywhere from a C to an A. Of course, my band and my art and my choir were always A's, but everything else was just kind of where it happened to be at. I remember not being, I don't want to say I wasn't a terrible student, but I wasn't a great student. Depending on how you looked at it. I had a younger sister that school came really easy for her. So I always knew, I was like, oh, I wish people would recognize me. I know I'm intelligent, but I don't perform at the same way they were. And I just knew that I had to work harder. It took me longer to read. It was, I remember in 6th grade doing these timed reading things. Oh, I hated those. But I'm like, can you please not do that? I says, you either can ask me to understand and I can read really slowly, or just slide across the letters and not get anything. And then middle school we moved, and so moving in middle school, initially you don't have friends, so you spend a lot of time doing your schoolwork.
Yes.
And so my grades changed dramatically then, because I spent a lot more time doing schoolwork. And then again, same thing happened in high school when we moved again. And so I started getting really good grades, but I spent a lot of time doing schoolwork. I'd come home and I'd do schoolwork all night.
Wow.
That was all I wanted to do.
Wow.
But, halfway through that year, it changed, and I decided, well, I would rather have somewhat of a social life. So I didn't put as much time into it. I had some really good teachers that helped me out a lot, that would spend the extra time with me, and they recognized that I would work hard, and that was so important for them, and seeking them out for help. So I had some really good teachers. None of them ever knew I had
DLD,
a disability. Yeah. I didn't look like what people would typically say. I wasn't a failing student. So, so it was never noticed.
And how would you say, what do friendships look like for you now as an adult?
I would say pretty similar. Yeah. I mean, there's less
life too. We get it.
Yeah, different. Adult life is way different than school. So I would say it's way better than when you're K through 12. Friendships in college are they are deeper than what you get in high school. You do have some really close high school friends, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that you would stay close to, but college is just really different. And so that's kind of nice. You have a bigger pool of people that you're dealing with, and you get to relate to and get to know. Not only you're not just confined to what the local norm is, you get to choose and figure out who you are and what you like and what you want to be. And so and everybody's kind of in that same boat, trying to figure out who they are at the same time. So you just kind of walk with each other through it. So
So you didn't really feel different than your peers at that point in your life?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, other than, sometimes I had hard times with classes, but I think here and there, everybody kind of had hard times with classes. Started college and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
So then I got tutors. So fortunately at that college, they had tutors. There must have been a tutoring center that I just went, and I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I'm in the chemistry club and he leads it. So he's going to be my chemistry tutor. And this gal is my RA. She's doing psychology. She's going to help me with my psychology and tutor me. So I just went and found tutors in each class, the classes that I needed the tutors in.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Without that, I probably would have failed.
So you really knew yourself, like you knew yourself really well, and sought out the help that you needed.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with seeking out that help. And I know that's hard for some people to do. I feel like there's even more available than what there was when I was in college. There weren't writing centers when I was in college. There are writing centers now. I live closer to a bigger town. I live in Nebraska, so I live right outside of our state capital, Lincoln. So our major university is University of Nebraska Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a speech language therapy college there. If somebody has developed DLD, they can go there and probably find help in some way, shape, or form. Someone there would know how to guide them where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids we've sought out the university for help with my kids. So I'm already familiar with that. And then I have other friends, their kids are going there that have different other disabilities such as ADHD or learning disabilities. And they tell me about the different things their kids have done. And used. So that's how I learn the tools. I have friends that are actually professors there. And so I will speak to them about it. And the ones that know will give me the resources. The other ones that don't, they'll say, well, here's who I'd talk to. Go here or go here. And just having those connections makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. So what did you study and what do you do for a career?
Well, I have a bachelor's in science in radiation sciences. I'm a board certified nuclear medicine technologist.
Wow.
So I work in healthcare. It's a healthcare related field. So I inject radiopharmaceuticals and watch how people's bodies function underneath the camera, and then process the images and provide the images to a medical doctor that specializes in reading those images, and that would be a radiologist, and they get a report out to the physician that referred the patient to our facility.
Wow, that's great. I feel like there's so many parents that I talk to as a speech pathologist. They come in, their child is sometimes around grade 6, like you said, grade 4, 5, 6, even the younger ones who are having difficulty just getting their words out or starting to combine words. And they think, is my child ever going to get a job? Or are they going to have friends? Are they going to be okay? Are they ever going to be independent? And hearing your story, hearing what you do about your friends, your time at college, like, wow, it must encourage. I think it'll really encourage a lot of parents.
I can relate to that worry.
Yes.
I had the same worry with my own children, because I didn't know until I was worried to death that that was probably the worst thing for me to go through. Yeah. Are they going to be able to do what they need to do? Can they make it through college? Can they academically handle it? And, currently we have one in college right now and he's doing great. Wow. And hopefully a year and a half, whatever. I have one that's going to be a senior here. Hopefully he'll be the same way. They don't want to, their choice is to use their accommodations or not. They have them in place if they want to, but they're choosing not to. So that is their choice. And I decided I was going to lead by example for my children. Yeah. So I can't push them to do something if I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So. I love that. So how about what has their journey been like? Let's start with, you were sharing socially, how you've done. What about socially for your children? How have they managed?
They're all kind of different. Right. The oldest one, he was very quiet, very similar to me. And he just kind of flowed with life. He didn't let much get to him very often. But you really never knew what he was thinking either, because he just didn't talk a whole lot. I think he started coming out of his shell about his senior year in high school. And, when he left high school, he goes, Mom, I really wished I would have done more. I wished I would have hung out with friends more. I wished I would have gotten involved. And, those were things that he said. And he has a core group of 3 or 4 friends that he still hangs out with, does things together with. Our school ended up starting a esports team, which is gaming, which is a big thing. And that was where he found his niche. And he's done quite well. I almost want to bite my tongue and not have to say this to parents, because there are scholarships out there for that. And he's getting his school paid for that. And so he goes to college academically. He's doing well. He's having to participate in sports like other kids do too. You have games, you have practices, he has to do all of those things along with keeping up with his academics.
And what's he studying? What's he studying?
What'd you say? He's studying something computers, not my realm.
Mine either.
I'm like, okay, tell me again what this. So I can't give you an exact name. Computers.
Computer
But
science.
right now he's just going to get an associate's degree. He hasn't decided if he wants a bachelor's or not. And he says, I'll just make that decision as I go through life. So we'll see. My one that's currently going to be a senior, his social life has been a little different. He's always been my little bit more of a social kid. So he's done well. He went through a time frame about junior high that it was a little bit tougher, but now he's really our social kid. He's went out and said, Mom, I'm going to get a job. He applied for his job on his own, got a job, is working his job, just taking care of everything. He works out with a couple of his friends several times a week. He's, hey, Mom, can I go to town to hang out with this kid? I'm like, okay. So he just takes care of everything himself, which is, I was wondering if that was going to happen because he went through a really, really quiet time about 6th grade to probably this year, his junior year. So, and then my daughter, she was probably my least shy of all of my kids. And she's currently in junior high, but I think girls are a little different than boys. I think it's going to be harder just with I'm going to call it girl drama. It's just harder to deal. Girls are just more vocal about their feelings and about other people and treatments and worry more about what other people think. So that gets a little bit harder. And she's got 3 really good friends that are a core group of girls that I hope she stays close to. But if she doesn't, we'll move on and we'll figure out another way to find somebody else to be close to. So it is what it is. So
yeah. Oh, and with her, does she struggle to keep up with conversations sometimes if they're going really quickly or they're using more slang or sarcasm? How does she do with that?
She would be the one that I don't know if you would notice it so much with. I don't. She's also got some ADHD, so sometimes she jumps in and a lot more, and so you don't see that as much with her. She might misinterpret things, conversations, but her friends are just really good about, and she'll ask questions if there's something she doesn't understand.
Beautiful.
Or she'll sit there and not say anything, and she'll come home to Mom and Dad and ask us. But my oldest was the current one that's in college. He was very, very quiet, very quiet. Just, he was kind of more on the outside of conversations, unless he was with a couple really close friends, and that was about it. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of hope for parents. If maybe they're going to take a little bit longer, maybe a little bit quicker to find their place, find their people. It sounds like all of your kids have done that, right?
They have. I hope it continues that way, but all we can do is walk with them when they do go through those hard times. I'd be doing a disservice to say that we haven't had those hard times, because we've went through those hard times where I've had to cry with my daughter and say, it's okay, and if people are going to treat you that way, that's not what a good friend does. We have to be okay just walking away, and we just go, okay, we're not gonna we'll just keep our distance and we'll be kind to that person, and this is how we're gonna move forward with it. So wasn't easy, but she's finally getting the hang of it a little bit. And but yeah, she's had more of the hard times. I think girls will go through it a little bit more than boys, but I'm not 100% sure about it. I didn't have as much with my boys. They were just a lot quieter and stuck at home. So I had close family members. So
I love all that support. I'm just going to look at the list for some other questions. What do you feel has helped you the most with your DLD? You've mentioned different strategies that you've come up with. Do you feel like you kind of just figured those out on your own? Do you have maybe like a top 5 tips or?
Patience. I guess. I've had to learn to not be so hard on myself. Being around people that are okay making mistakes and expressing that they're okay, that's probably been the best tool that I've had as I've gone through life. You didn't see that as much going through high school because it's such a competition of who's going to be where. But once you get out in the real world, people are like, oh, I made a mistake. I really hate making mistakes. It makes me feel this way. But they just accept it. It's part of a life. And so when you get into the real world, people are more willing to be okay with those mistakes and just, just let it be. That's just life. We can't go without making mistakes. So that's probably been the biggest thing that has helped me out the most. Just getting through school. I've used, like I said, tutors, whatever tutor I had to go find that I could afford, which I didn't pay for tutors. They were in college. I used the people that were doing well in college that they had in the tutoring centers. I went to like some of they didn't ever had a writing center when I was there. I would go and ask the teachers, the professors for help that were available. I would say, I started out at a university. Again, that's where I used the tutors. Then I went to a community college and got my X-ray degree. And those teachers were always available to help. Always. They were absolutely phenomenal.
Wow.
Just, I could not speak better about those teachers. And then I went to the University of Nebraska Medical Center for my bachelor's of science in my nuclear medicine technology degree. That was a little harder. That was, but I also had a close friend of mine that went through X-ray school with me that we studied a lot together. I had her to review things with, to study with. So I had finding someone to always study with, or finding someone when you don't understand it to help you work through it. Having at least one person in those classes makes a huge difference. And when you're in a bigger school, that's definitely harder to find. So like I said, when I was at the university, I went and found tutors. I spent my time at the library and found tutors. So, and occasionally I saw the professors, they weren't as available. Now that we've got smartphones, I use speech to text, text to speech. I use like my vocabulary, my Collins dictionary quite regularly. You can speak a word into your phone. It will tell you how to spell it if you can speak it appropriately. I have other friends that can't get close enough to the spelling or the pronunciation. They'll just text me. Or I've had incidences even online where I'll speak of one that I have no problem speaking about. It's slightly embarrassing, but I worked through it just fine. I was typing something on one of my professional pages and had a picture, and on this picture I wrote the word broken. I misspelled the word broken. Now I will probably do it again if I don't get it right. And I think I spelled it Brocken. And one of the persons commented, oh, broken, just like the person's spelling's broken or something. I don't even remember. So it was initially kind of hurtful, but at that time I didn't know, but I had 3 kids that I was struggling with, going through similar situations. And I know they had learning disabilities in reading. And I was familiar with dyslexia, and I just said, thanks for catching my spelling error. Not everybody can spell great. People that have dyslexia find it hard. I appreciate you catching this. And this person was, oh, thank you so much for being so kind about it. I didn't realize I didn't mean to come off that way. You took it so well. And so people just aren't aware, and we both got a chuckle out of it and we moved on. So I corrected my mistake and moved on. So, and there are always those people, and you just kindly let them know what's going on and say, hey, not everybody's perfect. People that have dyslexia or learning disabilities struggle with spelling. So, and that's just how it went. It was interesting. So you can find clever ways. I had to take a step back and wait a half hour, 45 minutes to respond.
That's so good.
But there's ways to handle it. I took it as a opportunity to enlighten, and inform.
I have a quick question for you. I'm an elementary school teacher, and you mentioned that you realized that you had DLD very recently.
Yes.
How did you navigate talking to your children's teachers? Because I know at my school, there's a lot of conversation as of late on DLD, and really a lot of PD, trying to familiarize ourselves. And how did you navigate
talking to their teachers?
Yeah, what did that
about DLD?
No,
well, about me.
No, about DLD or about your child's like needs.
That I just sent an email. I said, here you go. Here's the report. I'm learning about it here, and here's some great resources. So that's all I did. And then, going through 504 meetings, and we were through IEP meetings beforehand. At that time frame, I didn't realize they had DLD. And I think I just spoke to them about it. And I just gave them the report, and I was still learning about it. But now that I've been recently diagnosed with it, even in the 504 meetings, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry if this is so hard for you, but there might be multiple emails, and I'm asking for this, and please provide this, because I do have DLD. And if you want to ask me any questions about it, I'm happy to help you answer any questions. So I just put it out there for them, because they need to, at the same time, they need to familiarize themselves. I don't think they're asking those questions in my area yet, but I hope to be the leader on that one.
Well, sounds like you are doing an amazing job with raising awareness. And also, I love sharing the vulnerabilities with your kids of, I experienced this challenge, like spelling broken. Did you share that with your kids? And
I don't think maybe my daughter. But even at work, I've talked to them about some of the things that happen at work, and they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. But then you talk to other people that don't have those diagnoses, and sometimes they struggle with the same things too. And so it might lead other people to go, oh, okay, maybe I have something going on. That's all you can do, is just share your knowledge and allow it to grow where it's going to grow, and where it's not, you just got to move on sometimes. Or I've learned you can't be forceful with it, and it does take time. Unfortunately, many of us don't want it to take that time, and I totally understand that. Totally get it.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to comment on what you just said, that so many people may have something going on as well, right? And that's DLD is so common. 1 in 14 people have it, and so many people are walking around not realizing that they have it. And so I think the raising awareness piece that you mentioned, that's so important. So amazing. I really like that. Yeah. What else do we have on the list, Kamisha?
I was going to say to you, Nicole, I love your outlook. I feel like you bring such a lightheartedness and a inquiry, like just a curious mindset to this journey that I feel inspired by hearing as well. Because I think when you lean in with curiosity, it does disarm like those around you. I know as a teacher, sometimes parents come in really hot, and practicing reminding myself, like, I know where they're coming from, and the passion comes from their love for their child. And oftentimes when I lean in with curiosity, it does disarm those around me. So I really love that I see that in you as a trait, and I think that's so beautiful. So beautiful.
I'm glad to hear that you say that, and I hope more educators can also have that approach. And I wish that was always the approach I was received with. It hasn't been. I try to put forth that approach and give everybody else the benefit, the good benefit. I think everybody means well. I really do. But I do understand there's a lot of misunderstanding, and I get where that comes from. I am guilty of it myself. Until my kids went through it, I had no idea. I have a little brother that struggled with learning, and it wasn't till my kids got to middle school that we realized they were struggling as much as they were. That's when it just snowballed. We were able to keep up till then. And my mom had talked about my little brother, and I would think he probably does too, but he hasn't been tested for it. So I've mentioned it, but So yeah, that's how I feel about it. I was the person thinking, oh, if you just work hard, everything will be okay. Well, sometimes working hard enough isn't going to get you enough. Some people need more than that.
So true. And I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with one of the questions that someone from our community asked. Do you feel negative emotions? Whether it's negative emotions towards DLD or negative emotions towards, say, tripping over your words. Do you feel like your curiosity kind of helped to not build up a anxiety towards speaking and sharing and communicating?
I would say having that outlook, the growth outlook, the growth mindset has helped. But don't think I haven't gone through those times myself, because I have.
Right.
And when you are going through those times and you get at those times, I would highly encourage people to seek out help. It's not a bad thing. Some of us need an extra person to walk alongside of us once in a while, and just having that and that encouragement and just some other skills to allow you to deal with things better, hard situations easier, does help. Because I have been in those situations where it is hard and you feel like you're alone and you have nobody and you're singled out, and so you just you find your people, whether it be professionals, whether it be close friends, a combination of both. That's what's going to help you walk through it at the same time. So, and then it's encouraging. Our professionals are coming along slowly. 2 years ago, we have annual meetings it's called Society of Nuclear Medicine. And there was one gal that is a teacher at one of the colleges. She gave a talk on disabilities in the field, and most people, it was just very minimal information. I don't want to say brief. It wasn't very in depth, but just bringing awareness in that small little way that she did was wonderful, because it needs to be brought out. It's not talked about. And I hope to carry that on, and hope to develop some more continuing education for that, because it's easier for people to see those people that have disabilities that you can physically see. When you've got those what we call hidden disabilities, and DLD happens to be one, dyslexia or any SL specific learning disabilities, those are all hidden, and a lot of people don't know how much of a struggle those people go through, and they're doing it silently. And I would like to encourage those people to find those people in their professions, because we shouldn't have to do it silently. We shouldn't. And we should grow our awareness. We're doing it in other areas of our life. We can do it in this area too. So professionally, as employers, we can grow our supports and make the workplace more supportive and more efficient for people that have a harder time with language and academic language and professional language. Make it easier for them. They're just as capable and they have just as much to offer. So I hope to grow that collaboration and people speaking out and coming together with people, so we can make the community better for everyone, just not the typical developing person. So.
Well, that's so good. So kind of leading into that, I was also wondering if you could talk a little bit more about those IEP meetings. Or EHCP meetings for the British people who are going to watch this eventually. What are some specific things you asked for your kids, accommodations or modifications for them? Did you have recommendations from their speech pathologists or other professionals involved, or were there specific things that you asked for?
Definitely I asked for everything that any professional recommended. Because but then I also had to keep a balanced mind that you have to think about some of these when you go out to the real world, what is reasonable. And I didn't want them to be so heavily over accommodated that it wasn't going to be realistic in the real world. So simple things like extended time, speech to text, text to speech, Grammarly, different grammar apps. Those things almost anybody should have availability to at a very, very minimal cost, if nothing at all. A lot of our platforms and our computer systems, they're already automatically integrated. You just have to go in and turn them on. So those are like, when I got to the end of my kids, that's what I was really trying to push for. The toughest one for me to get for academic testing was extra time.
Okay.
It took about 3 years for me to get that. My oldest didn't get it on his, their academic testing, ACT testing. He didn't get any accommodations at all. He got it when he was on his IEP, but they removed him from his IEP and didn't offer him any accommodations. I asked for a 504. They said, no, he doesn't need it. So, and then my other one, at the same time he came off his IEP, they said no for a 504. And I kept pushing. I went to additional professionals. I went to clinical psychologists. He eventually, he ended up going through migraines. And so then he got a 504 for that. And then started speaking about some different things of anxiety that he was dealing with. Then we got that added to the 504. And then I finally went and got a comprehensive language evaluation, and we got that added to it. And finally they agreed after all of that and 3 different professionals and different diagnoses and just advocating, saying, hey, he deserves extra time. We want to see what he's capable of with extra time. Plus, one of his teachers had given him a practice ACT math test, and he only got barely halfway through it. And so that pushed them to add that to his 504. And so I would say, parents, just keep pushing, keep going to additional professionals to support what you're asking for. So that was definitely a hard one to get, and I don't know why. But going into college for my 19-year-old that didn't have a 504, I just walked in with the evaluation. Like, they're like, oh, we'll take the school one that he had 4 years ago. That's going to be fine. Wow. I'm like, well, we just had a speech language assessment because I wanted to know if he has this. So he has this too now. And they're like, okay, he can have extra time. He can have this. That was so easy compared to what I dealt with in the K through 12 system. Wow. But I asked for what the professionals were putting in, recommending in the reports. So
good. So good. I really like that reminder that parents really do have to be their child's number one advocate. Because sometimes, as an educator, I have anywhere between 23 to 26 students in my class. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming, but having a parent that's advocating and leaning in with that the best intent. Oh, right. It's amazing.
I just wished at one time a teacher just would have whispered in my ear and said, oh, I did have one educational member say, that's out of my realm. I can't speak to that, but here's where I'm going to refer you. One. So one. So I just wish there would have been more that would have just the quiet under the table encouragement. I wouldn't have been that loud parent that would have turned him, would have divulged that to anybody. I would have, okay, they're on my side. I just needed someone to encourage me, because it is a lonely, long fight when you're by yourself. But yeah, I would say keep pushing, for it. So it's not easy.
So good. But
yeah, very good. And that's kind of what our whole passion is, right, Kamisha, is helping parents get to that point where they can feel confident knowing what their child needs, understanding what DLD is, and then how to advocate. So it sounds like, you really got that down, and it's so beautiful to see, because early on in your journey, I bet you didn't feel that way, right? Like, if you take us back 10, 15 years ago, how were you at that point?
It was, so I think my journey probably started about, well, I can't really say, but it officially headed way as 7, 8 years ago when we got on the IEPs and requested testing.
Okay.
I had no clue what I was getting into. I mean, I had an aunt that was a school psychologist, so she's like, "Oh, say this," and I'm like, "Well, I'm saying this, but I don't know what it means." So, just so good. But yeah, it was a huge relief to get. They just had SLD testing. I think I was scared. I didn't know. They asked me, "Do they understand?" Well, I wish they would have asked more than "Do they understand?" I wish they would have probed deeper. Because had I known, we were doing a lot of re-explaining things, so they really weren't understanding. It was because they had the support at home. They could have gotten that speech language assessment initially because they weren't understanding fully. I saw that right away. My daughter was, I think, 5 at the time, so I knew right away at 4 or 5 when she was having the same troubles the boys had at that age. I'm like, "Oh, this isn't a boy thing. Well, we're gonna do something now." But yeah, I didn't know. I initially was way deep into the internet. The World Wide Web is not a place you really want to get lost in.
Yeah.
It was exhausting and trying to sift through all the information. I eventually got on Peter Wright's website, bought a couple of his advocacy books, read through that, got involved at the local dyslexia chapter and started taking some reading classes that way. But I just didn't feel like I fit because my kids' main struggles wasn't decoding. They had some fluency struggles. So I just felt like I never had a place that I fit into. And there wasn't a whole lot of information about the not understanding. And I was kind of delving deep into that and coming across some different research at Vanderbilt University and finding different professionals driving 3 hours for testing for, other professionals, because there just really wasn't much locally in our state 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It has changed a lot.
Really?
Took Wright's Law training. I did their 8-hour class. I went and taken an Advocates University 1 and 2 course. One was just understanding the law, going through lots of questions. He had tests and everything. Talked about cases. This is a special education attorney that runs this class. And the Advocates University 2 class, he teaches you how to write your own state complaints and 504 complaints.
Wow.
So I went through that. It's been a long, grueling journey, but I just figured if I'm going to be the advocate that I need to be, I have to understand this as well as the school does to be able to, or, lots of times better than even most of the school staff, because they don't have all that training. So yeah, that was kind of, I even hired different advocates. They put on some different trainings. Whatever I could do to help people, because it's definitely a journey to just get some simple 504s in different states for students. So unless you're completely failing, it's hard to even get an IEP in some of the places around here. So
I absolutely love that you led with, like, I need to educate myself, because I think, like Janine was mentioning earlier, it is our passion to see parents feeling confident, feeling like they know the language, not feeling inferior to teachers and educators, can like step in the gap for their child. And I think that's kind of the heart behind why we're doing this and why we're so, so passionate, is because we truly believe it starts at home.
Right.
Really, really, really does. And I feel like you've been able to navigate some treacherous waters. Like, you've navigated some wild times. And I think you've like gotten the confidence after every initiative or course or article that you've read. So you should be so, so, so proud. And just because this is exactly what kind of fills Janine and I up. So I know we're coming up to the hour mark, but If you had to give parents, let's say, 2 pieces of advice, if you had to give parents 2 pieces of advice, what would that look like? Janine, would you agree?
Yes.
Oh, the biggest piece of advice I'd say is hang in there just for your child's sake. No matter how exhausting, emotionally, psychologically, hang in there. It is the toughest journey I've had to do in my entire life. And I've had some tough journeys, but hang in there. I would encourage you to find a support system, but that's not always easy to do. You just, I don't know how to encourage people to find a support system. There are people that have reached out to me locally just because I don't even know how we ran into each other. Somebody I was close to told somebody, and somebody told somebody, and they just messaged me or haloed me, or I would see someone post something on one of these group pages that would say they're from Nebraska, and I would reach out to them saying, hey, you're not alone. If you need someone, I'm here in the state with you. Been there, done that. So that sometimes helps. I've also found collaboration or support recently through Boys Town in Lincoln or Omaha, Nebraska, which I came about that location through I think it's DLD and me.
Yes.
I think you guys said, just because one of their core founders was Carla McGregor.
Yes.
I have no problem sending an email to someone. I'm like, hey, I'm in the state of Nebraska. Help me out here. So I did reach out to her before my kids got tested or right after. I'm trying to understand this and, ask for additional information. Those people are more than happy to provide whatever they can, whatever knowledge they have to help you out. And again, if you have to, and it's exhausting, find a professional that's going to support you. Yeah. You might have to go through 1, 2, or 3. It's okay. It's okay. Find someone that's going to support you, that knows how hard of a journey this is, that's going to encourage you, that's going to help you develop skills to not only advocate, but to stand up for yourself, to get your needs met and your child's needs met. Because sometimes you have to be very assertive, and that's very hard to do for a lot of us. I don't want to be pushy, but sometimes you have to keep asking and keep saying. And there are people out there that will help you and make you feel like you're not doing something that's wrong, whereas you might feel that way if you don't have someone supporting you in that way.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. I wish we could talk for hours and hours again. This was really, really good. Yeah, we appreciate your time so much. I think you're going to encourage a lot of parents out there who are earlier on in their journey.
I hope so. And any of them can reach out to me via Messenger. I'll answer when I see it. Sometimes I'm not the quickest, so don't think I'm ignoring you. Just realize that I don't see all those.
Yeah. And we get it. Everyone's so busy.
Yeah,
but
so generous.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Like Janine said, this is going to inspire so many people.
Yeah. I hope. It's hard. And I
hope we can still continue to stay in contact to encourage each other through.
Sounds wonderful.
Great. Okay, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.